thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. We are talking today with Mark Dow, and he is going to be talking to us about business interruption insurance. But before we get to that, I'm going to do a little commercial for the New Mexico Restaurant Association. Many of you are members, and your membership allows us to do the work that we're doing. We have a staff of 5 full-time folks and about 2 or 3 part-time folks. And I just want to say that we work hard on your behalf all year round. And of course, I think during this COVID crisis, you've seen us more, but we're always out there doing the work on your behalf. Many members don't have, well, let me say it this way. We have members that have been members for years. We have people who are on these calls who are getting all of this good information really because those members have been members for years and pay for us to be here. So what I'd like to say is we have a provisional membership that we are putting out now. And basically it's a membership that you can commit to the Restaurant Association, that you appreciate what we're doing, you appreciate everything that we're about and doing for you right now. You can't pay because of the situation, and we totally understand that. But the provisionalness is that when you can pay, you appreciated us enough that you want to become a member. We would love to have you become a member. Things like yesterday when we had the governor on the call, that's the kind of thing we do for our members all the time. And we're talking to your elected officials as well. So I just wanted to do a little plug for the Restaurant Association and for my staff. They're fabulous. They've been at this nonstop since the COVID crisis came on and even before that. So thank you, staff, and thank you, members who have been paying us for years, and thank you for your support. A couple of things. The governor did decline to provide a time frame yesterday for reopening. And what I need you to do is take action. So go back to our newsletter from today and take action. Send the message to the governor that we need a time frame for opening. She is going to have a conference call, a press conference this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So as soon as this is over, she will have her press conference. It's on Facebook Live. You can find it there under Governor Michelle Lujan Gresham. And we're waiting to hear what she's going to say. I don't think she's going to have good news for us, but we're waiting to hear what she says before we formulate our next steps. And I'd like to hear from you if you have ideas about how to formulate those next steps. Let me keep going. I do want to let you all know that the Department of Homeland Security has issued a temporary policy for I-9 forms. And this is because some of the ID cards we have are expiring and you can't get new ones. So just if you're in that situation, please look here. And don't forget, we have free job board listings. And one other thing that we're doing is we have the Serving New Mexico Fund. For those of you who have employees that are out of work and maybe aren't getting unemployment for various reasons, this fund will give them at least a $200 grant. We're not asking for money back. We're granting this money. So this fund is giving money to our employees that are experiencing hard times. So I just wanted you to know all of that. Today we have with us Mark Dow, Bauman Dow PC, and Mark's discussing business interruption insurance. And I know many of you have called me with, you have insurance, it says you have business interruption insurance, yet you're getting a denial letter from your insurance companies. So without further ado, actually a little further ado, Mark was brought to me by Antonia Roybal-Mack, and as you know, she is our attorney here at the Restaurant Association. And I told Antonia I would like for her to introduce Mark. She knows him better than I do. So Antonia.
Thank you, Carol. I want to introduce Mark, who has over 40 years of experience handling complex insurance coverage issues. And Mark's probably one of the best in the state, if not the best in the state, attorney that you can get when it comes to insurance bad faith claims. And that's what these claims are that people are currently experiencing, where they don't feel like they've been treated fairly by their insurance carrier. Mark is a retired general. He served 32 years with, I believe, the New Mexico National Guard, and he'll correct me, retired as a general. And he's just a fantastic lawyer. I trust his legal knowledge inherently, and I think he's a really good asset for your members if they're in this situation. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say.
Great. Thank you so much, Antonio. Am I on the screen now? Let me make sure that I'm not...
I'm stopping sharing, and so you can share now. If you want to share it.
Let me see if I can pull up.
It's the big green button that says screen share.
Right. There's a document that I was going to pull up here. And let me see here. I'll try it once more time this way. You have to forgive me, just a little bit new on this. So,
do you have the document?
Yeah, I've got. Question is getting the right document up there. There we go. Now I've got a document up there. I don't know if that's shared or not.
I don't see it. Oh yeah, it says we're viewing your screen. Oh, we are. Sorry, it's on the other side of my. I have two.
Do we have it there? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, let's business interruption coverage. First of all, you're not in a liability.
Mark, I hate to interrupt, but what we have up is maybe one screen. So this is the screen to join the Zoom meeting.
Okay, so I don't have the full screen.
You do. It's all, but it's the whole join the Zoom meeting. Sorry.
You want to email it to them?
No, she was saying, there you go.
There we go. That's what we're looking at.
It's
there
up
we go.
now.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, we got the right one.
We got the right one.
Yeah. First of all, generally business interruption coverage comes with your property insurance and your insurance that covers your business property. It's not a general liability policy. It is a policy that goes along with and protects your business assets, like your property, your building, those kinds of things. The best way to find out if you've got business interruption insurance is obviously to pull out your policy and look through the declarations page. But that's a little bit difficult for some people. The best way to do it is just to call your retail agent. The person or persons that place your policy should be able to tell you if you have any kind of business interruption coverage. And that can be loss of income, business interruption, supply interruption. It can be called a number of different things. But the real test is to submit a claim to your insurance company. Under New Mexico law, an insurance company has to respond within a reasonable time to tell you what your coverages are and why you may or may not be covered for business interruption coverage. In other words, business interruption coverage can cover, just your expenses. It can cover your employment payroll. It can cover revenue. It can cover net income. It just depends on how your contract is drafted. So it's impossible for me to tell you here today whether you've got one kind of policy versus another kind of policy. So the best way to do it is file a written claim. and they're required to get back with you in a reasonable time. And a reasonable time is not months. It's more like weeks. No time is specified for it, but certainly they're obligated, certainly in times like this, to get back to you fairly quickly because it's very important to you.
Mark,
Yes, go ahead.
just to interrupt and make sure people understand, even if your agent says it's not covered, file a claim,
Exactly.
because that's not the end all be all. The end all is getting that denial letter back. So I'll let you go on. But a lot of times the agents will always tell you things are not covered.
Yeah. Your retail agent is not the person who reads your policy and determines whether or not you've got a claim or not. That is an insurance adjuster. Those two types of agents are completely separated in the industry. Your retail agent is the person that sells you the policy. He or she should know if you've got business interruption coverage. Now, he or she may not know what the scope of it is, and he or she may be an independent real estate agent or a captive agent that works for the company. So he or she, as your retail agent, is not going to be deciding whether or not you've got coverage or not. It's going to be the adjuster that works for that company. And that adjuster has to, under New Mexico statutory law, give you a written denial. And what you want is a written denial. So you have to file a written claim. Hey, the governor of the state of New Mexico shut my business down, and we've been shut down for 4 weeks now, or 6 weeks now, whatever that time period is. We want business interruption coverage. And they're required, if they're going to deny coverage, they have to tell you expressly why they're denying coverage. Now, let me kind of skip down and we'll come back up to the accountant, because you don't need an accountant to file a claim. To file a claim, all you need to say is, hey, my business has been interrupted, I've been damaged, and I'm filing a claim. That's all you have to do. And you don't have to hire an attorney to do it. You should look on your insurance policy, and there'll be a place to submit claims. But you could also copy your retail agent, because typically your retail agent, that's their job as well, is to put the carrier on notice. But you should put the carrier on notice directly yourself. There are two areas that are of concern. One is, I was looking at a Philadelphia insurance policy today, and they have an express exclusion for pandemics. If your policy doesn't have an express exclusion, then you're probably in pretty good shape. There are other types of exclusions, and they're both exclusions and inclusions for state civil orders, like the governor's order. So which came first, the chicken or the egg, the pandemic or the governor's order? So very often your policy may have not just business interruption coverage, but it may have interruption coverage based upon a civil order. When I say a civil order is just exactly what the governor has issued, a civil order saying you have to shut your business down. And it's, oddly enough, it's not that uncommon. You have civil orders all the time. A good example, you might have a fire next door that burns down your building, and the fire department will tape off the neighborhood and shut you down for a week while they clean out the business next to you. So you may not have been actually physically damaged, but you may have a fire marshal's order or a governor's order or some kind of civil order that shuts you down. So there are various different types of policies. Every policy is different. You have to read every policy is different. State Farm policy is different than Prudential. Prudential is different than Philadelphia. There are a whole host of different kinds of policies. Once you get a denial letter, then you need to get with an attorney. and bring them in your policy. But that denial letter is going to specifically say why you were denied coverage. It's going to either say there's an exclusion applies, or you didn't buy this endorsement. If you thought you purchased an endorsement, then you may need to go back to your retail agent and say, hey, I thought, you were supposed to purchase business interruption coverage for me. So that's another kind of an outside concern that you might have. So there are a number of different ways an insurance company will try to avoid paying for a pandemic. One is they'll say, another example is they'll say, well, you haven't been damaged. You have no physical damage. Most insurance policies and most current CGL or current types of policies, commercial property and even commercial liability policies, define damages as loss of use. And typically, unless that insurance policy excludes loss of use is going to be sufficient to trigger coverage. That's what we call a contingent business interruption cause. And one of the ways that insurance companies try to avoid that is they say, well, you haven't been damaged, when in fact, loss of use is a damage similar to actual physical loss. Let's go down and take a look. We talked about exclusionary language. Even if there is an exclusion, if that exclusion is ambiguous in some way, the one thing about insurance policies, they're what we call adhesion policies. You don't negotiate for the terms. It's a take it or leave it policy. So if your exclusionary clause is ambiguous or can be read in a number of different ways, then tie goes to the insured. Tie goes to the runner, which is you, the insured. Another type of coverage is a civil order shutting your business down. That can cut both ways. Sometimes a civil order is treated as an exclusion. Other times a civil order is treated as coverage. In other words, there's specific coverage for a order that shuts down your business. It just depends on what your policy says. But the one thing about a civil order, I don't know if you all watched the Katrina hurricane litigation that occurred. There was an exclusion for water damage that, in other words, the damage was caused by water. But the attorneys argued that the main cause, the initiating cause, was wind causing large waves to come, tidal waves to come in. So the question is, which is first, the chicken or the egg? In this case, it's typically the pandemic. In other words, it's the virus that causes it. So even though you might have an exclusion for some kind of civil closing, if you do not have an exclusion for pandemic or some kind of virus or bacteria exclusion in your policy, then it's the initiating cause that is covered. So you might have intervening causes that might be excluded, but if the primary cause is covered, then chances are your policy's covered. So that kind of gives you an idea. So the bottom line is, first of all, you have to find out if you've got business interruption coverage. Call your retail agent, call your broker, file a written claim. Under New Mexico law, and this is the statute, I'm sure everybody's going to write this one down, but under 59A 1620A, it requires the carrier to admit or deny coverage within a reasonable time. And under the same statute, it requires that carrier to give you a reasonable explanation. And most attorneys, including our firm, if you've got a denial of coverage, you grab your insurance policy and you come in and we'll sit down free of charge and take a look and tell you whether we think you've got a claim or not. These claims are being filed. You're starting to see a lot of them in federal court. You're starting to see that, people talking about it in the business community as being a drag on the profits of insurance companies. The one thing about an insurance company you need to understand is you pay a premium, and you pay a premium, and most of these coverages provide coverages for everything in the world. There's two different kinds of insurance policies. There's an all-risk policy, which covers everything in the world, and then there's more narrowly tailored policies that only cover specific risks. So they identify specific risks that are covered. Don't you worry about it. The thing that you need to do is file a claim, and then if they deny coverage, and typically this is a first-party claim. When I say a first-party claim, it's not like a liability claim. It's like a life insurance policy. So if you've got coverage and your attorney believes that you've got coverage, you can recover your attorney's fees in court under 59A or 39-1-2, which is New Mexico statute that allows you to recover under first-party types of insurance, and business interruption is a first-party coverage. It's like a life insurance policy. It's like somebody comes and breaks a window in your house, that kind of coverage. Questions?
Let me unmute myself there. So we do have an interesting question, and that is, our policy excludes communicable diseases. Is that bad?
That doesn't help. The issue is when you say communicable diseases, what is the definition of a communicable disease? If there is a dispute about whether or how they define the policy or define the communicable disease, then you can win. Because remember, typically an insurance policy covers all risks, and then it starts excluding risks. So you've got an insuring clause that gives you complete coverage typically, or specified coverages, and then it excludes pieces out of there. So if the exclusion is ambiguous in terms of a definition of a term, communicable disease, that is not helpful. That's a red flag. But have an attorney take a look at it.
So I have a question for you. Have you had anybody that has actually been paid on an insurance claim right now?
We've had a number that have, yes. Typically, most insurance companies are going to deal straight with you. And if you've got that coverage, they're going to tell you. It's really, when you're dealing with an attorney, you're dealing with an insurance policy that's got a problem and is not clear about what it covers and what it doesn't cover. So most insurance companies, once you file a claim, you're not there all the way, because you have a proof of loss. Typically, it's going to require that you get an accountant or somebody with a business background to fill out that proof of loss, because typically they have a formula. It's like there's depreciation on your roof when you've got roof damage or something like that. They'll have a formula for determining what they're going to pay and what they're not going to pay on the business interruption.
So, and somebody else said, my farmer's insurance told me that they have a virus exclusion. And again, I think you demand the information in writing, right?
Right, and then bring in your policy. In the denial letter, they're going to set out the exact phraseology in that exclusion. The one I just looked at today was not a helpful exclusion. The client was not a happy camper, and it was a virus exclusion. It had a general definition of a virus, and the COVID-19 is a virus, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and so I do want to mention to people also, I was just on a call with the Law Center for the National Restaurant Association talking about this insurance coverage. And one thing that they're working on is a federal fix And basically, and you may know more about this, Mark, than I do, because I just learned about it, but they were talking about the fix being a federal fix, because here's the problem. If everybody got paid on their insurance, the insurance companies could go out of business, right? Because if everybody got paid on that business interruption insurance, then the the insurance companies are at huge risk right now, just like they were during Katrina. So what happened during Katrina is the federal government came in and backed up those policies. Is that correct? Do you know?
Yes and no. I mean, at least, and this is really an area outside of what we're talking about. In our Constitution, we have the right, it's called freedom to contract. And this is, in fact, a contract. So essentially what you're talking about is the government coming in and saying, hey, we want to change the terms of the contract. So that if you have business interruption insurance, but you have an exclusion for this pandemic, if the government takes that away from the insurance company, that's a taking or potential taking under the Constitution. You can't after the fact change an insurance policy. But what the government can do is say, we will give you insurance companies an incentive. We'll give you a tax credit. We'll give you incentives to provide this coverage. And so that's what I think you're talking about. The federal government really can't change a contract, but they can, in fact, come in and say, hey, we will provide you some kind of specific monetary relief. If it were me in your association, I would ask for something more direct than that, because it still has to go through the insurance company. I would ask your legislators and your congressmen to recognize that the restaurant industry has been extraordinarily damaged and continues to remain damaged and will continue to remain damaged. I mean, we've got billion-dollar bailouts for airlines and Boeing and people like that. But certainly the restaurant industry has been damaged. I would ask for direct subsidies rather than something indirect that goes through the insurance companies.
Yeah.
That's just my personal preference.
No, I appreciate that. And I do believe that is a big part of what the National Restaurant Association is doing for us right now. And they're also asking for our help on that. So right after we leave this conversation, I'll put something up on the screen that you can, again, go to and ask Congress for this kind of specific relief for the restaurant community. We have a question here in the chat. We were shut down by government order, not because there was actually a virus present at our establishment. Do you think that argument is going to play here?
The answer is that it's obviously a complicated mix. If you've got an express exclusion, you're going to have a tough time. But you can argue that if you're in an area, something different than McKinley County, different than Gallup, and say, but you're swimming upstream. But essentially what you're saying is the coronavirus really didn't cause my shutdown. The governor shut us down and didn't need to. I don't think that's a winning argument. It's just the reverse of the argument. The wind caused the water that caused the damage. Here, the coronavirus is causing the civil order that's causing the damage. So it's a tough swim, in my opinion. You can certainly raise it.
Right. No, I get that. Does anybody have any other questions? And I think we got too many people on to unmute, but if you could chat them. Here's one. I'm located in a Simon Mall. The mall shuts us down through 5/15. is there any more wiggle room there?
It's really almost the same argument. If you're saying somebody else shut you down, the malls shut you down because of a civil order. So it's, I don't, the key issue is, do you have a pandemic exclusion? And the key issue is to have an attorney look at that exclusion. And I'd be more than happy. It really won't take 15 minutes for an attorney to take a look at an exclusion like that and to give you a hip shot or kind of a mini opinion about whether he thinks the exclusion is going to fly or not. You need to remember that exclusions are narrowly construed, coverage is broadly construed. So if that exclusion is poorly worded, then you might have a shot, but it depends, every exclusion is different.
The other thing I heard is that we have fairly protective laws in New Mexico as far as insurance goes, and that should be somewhat helpful to us in this. Is that correct? Antonia, was it you that was talking to me about that?
Yes. New Mexico is a very progressive state in terms of how they construe an insurance contract. So when you've got an insurance contract that provides you for coverage for your business property, and it's an all-risk policy. If you've got an all-risk policy, the main insuring agreement is essentially saying we're covering you for all risks. So if we've got an exclusion, and even though that exclusion may have been drafted in New York City or Delaware or someplace else where the insurance company is located, New Mexico law typically is going to apply, and they're going to construe that exclusionary language very narrowly. So if there is an ambiguous term, if they're talking, if they don't mention the word virus and they say we shut you down for some kind of pandemic reason, and the exclusionary language is problematic, then if it's ambiguous, the tie goes to the insured, because the insurance company drafted the policy. So under New Mexico law, if there's an ambiguous term or conflicting terms in the policy, then New Mexico construes coverage in favor of the insured and against the drafter.
So again, and I'm not going to belabor this because we basically covered this, is get something from your insurance company, and then what is it called?
A deny, they're going to send you a letter and they have to admit or deny coverage. And if they deny coverage, a denial letter, they're going to have to lay out the reasons why they denied it.
And then once you have that letter, take it to an attorney. If you feel like there's any wiggle room at all, take it to an attorney. And Mark is agreeing to do this for free. Mark, scroll down a little bit more so we can see how to reach you. I don't know if yet. Oh, that doesn't quite give us how to reach you.
How about a pie here? I've got our telephone number is 505-883-3191. And my email is mcd@bdsfirm.com. I also work with Antonia, and certainly you should give her a call. We work together on a number of cases, and she's handled some insurance cases in federal court, so she's got the ability to take a look at it as well.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for being on, Mark. I know people are concerned about this, and they have different, of course, like I say, most insurance agents are going to tell you don't have the coverage, but you really need to get that letter and then take it to an attorney. So hopefully this has been helpful for everybody. Thank you, Mark, for coming on. Thank you, Antonia, for introducing us to Mark. And I just want to encourage everybody to watch the governor's press conference today at 4. It'll be on Facebook Live, and hopefully we'll get some idea of when she might open restaurants for dine-in service. Again, thank you all for being here. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Carol.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.